grits. Do you prefer sugar or salt? Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to Sensation Nation. I am still here with Sensation Nation celebrating Black History Month. What an amazing way to end the month of February with none other than Major General Alfred K. Flowers. I was trying to figure out, how do I want to end the celebration of Black History Month and who do I want to end it with? And when I was able to finally just get Major General Flowers locked in, I was extremely excited, and I think that you all are going to learn a lot from General Flowers today. So before we get started, I want to kind of give you just a quick background about who Major General Flowers is. General Flowers is a retired United States Air Force officer who served in many roles, culminating as Deputy Assistant Secretary for Budget. At the time of his retirement, he had served more than 46 years on active duty, making him the longest serving airman ever. The longest serving airman ever. But on top of that, he is also the longest serving African American in the history of the United States Department of Defense. And for those that don't know much about the military, that means every branch of service. He's the longest serving African American in any branch ever. General Flowers is also the author of the book, Reflections of a Servant Leader. The book also, as you can see here, says my journey as the longest serving airman in the U.S. Air Force history. I am fortunate to have my copy, which I bought a very long time ago. And unlike some of my previous guests, this one is not signed. So General Flowers, I may just mail this to you, sir, just to kind of get your signature. So with that, sir, I'm going to tell everybody, we'll talk about this at the very end of how you can go purchase this book. But I highly encourage every single person out there to go out there and get this book. So without further ado, General Flowers, sir, it is an honor. Please welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Shooter. And thank you for the invite. And it's an honor to be with you. And it's an honor to be on your show and talk about the book and whatever else you'd like to talk about. I look forward to these kinds of sessions, and I like engaging and interacting with audiences across the country, from whatever background. So looking forward to the show.
Thank you, sir. And once again, it is an honor to just spend some time with you today here on Sensation Nation. I don't know how much you remember, but our first interaction was back at Keesler Air Force Base when I was a young staff sergeant serving as a military training leader, and you were the commander of 2nd Air Force. And you're going to hear this from me for the very first time. We were so mesmerized by seeing a Black African-American general officer. Every time you came around, we were just like, oh, they do exist. There he is. And it was just so fascinating for us. And all of my MTL peers who I still communicate with to this day, we still talk about it. You know, every time we encountered you, your presence was always welcoming. We had this running joke that every time you came around, you would kind of bring your hand out as if you were going to give us a dap, and we were just like, oh no, and we would kind of pull your hand back in. You're like, but that's how comfortable you made us feel, sir. And it was just an honor just to kind of be in your presence. And you know, I ultimately got picked up to become an officer, to head to officer training school. And I do remember you having a sit down with every single enlisted member that had been picked up for officer training school. And you had your preferences and recommendations on whether or not you should wear the pre-shined boots, or if you should, shine your boots yourself, and not wearing fancy watches and flashy watches and things like that. And when I went to officer training school, I tried my very best to get you to come and commission me, because I thought what an honor that would be to get you to to come in and put on my lieutenant bars. And for those that aren't familiar with the military, that just means that I was enlisted, getting ready to be an officer, and having someone like General Flowers putting on your lieutenant bars would have been just like, okay, I'm going to be good for the rest of my career kind of thing. So, sir, I don't know how much recollection you have of any of that information, but over to you.
I recall all of that. And I enjoyed the time that I spent sitting down talking to young folks that were about to go off to officer training school as much as you enjoyed having me do it. I thought that that was the least that I could do. You know, we sometimes fall short of the opportunity to mentor. And anytime I see the opportunity to mentor and help folks understand what you're getting into and maybe how to navigate some what could be rough waters sometime.
Right.
I saw that then and still do today as a responsibility of leaders. You know, we ought to mentor every opportunity we get. And I'm so happy for your decision to go to officer training school, become an officer. And yes, I still feel that watch bands ought to be leather and plastic shoes don't belong anywhere in the Air Force. But, you know, I still see them today. And it's just choices that folks make. And, you know, some would say that's old school, but, you know, nice leather shoes shine, really look good with a leather watch band that really looks good. And it's not flashy. It looks professional.
Right.
And that's who we are. And that's what we expect as from officers is to be professional, look professional, and do your best to lead every day, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, with whomever you're with.
That's awesome. And sir, obviously you have left your mark on the military that's going to be everlasting for generations and generations to come. You know, John C. Maxwell once said, "He who thinks he leads but has no followers is only taking a walk." And as I look behind you, I see two certificates that say Order of the Sword. Like, I know what that means, but I don't want to steal the thunder from you. And I'll just offer my perspective. The Order of the Sword is one of the highest honors that enlisted members can bestow upon an officer, sir. Anything you want to elaborate about that?
Yeah. Of all my 46 years, 5 months, and 21 days in the military on active duty, that is the highest honor that I've ever had.
Wow.
To be honored by the enlisted force, for which I was part of for 13 and a half years. And at the end of the 46 and a half years, have them come back and say, we respect you, we honor you, we appreciate what you did and try to do and will continue to do for the enlisted force. Thank you. There is no higher honor any place in the military, in my view.
That is amazing.
And I've got that behind me as I sit at my desk, and in front of me, I've got a picture of the Tuskegee Airmen.
Oh, wow.
And I look at one when I walk out the door, and I look at one when I come in the door.
Oh, wow.
Because they're all very, very special to me. And this being Black History Month and having those two things in my office makes it even more special.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing, sir. We could almost stop the podcast right there, but we got way too much good stuff to talk about. So speaking of like kind of making paths for others and paving the way, your son is actually a general officer in the United States Air Force now, right?
He is. He is a 1-star. He's the medical chief of the Medical Services Corps for the Air Force, stationed at the Defense Health Agency. And, the 7th of September, 2021 was a very proud day for the Flowers family. I had the opportunity to go to D.C. at the Air Force Memorial and do his promotion to 1-star.
Wow.
It's kind of, it's a good feeling. And it's something that I didn't ever know that I would feel because I had no idea that he was interested in the military.
Wow. Wow.
When he was in college as a freshman, he started ROTC, but he was on a basketball scholarship and he was trying to do ROTC and play basketball. And we had one requirement when he started school, and it was he had to major in something that he could make a living on. So I said, hey, man, you figure out what that is, but that's a requirement. So he decided to major in finance, So he was doing a finance curriculum, trying to play basketball on a scholarship and do ROTC. And he says, "Hey, Dad, I've got to drop something. It's too much." So I said, "Okay, your choice. You can drop everything but academics." And he dropped ROTC. Wow. And we never heard anything else about the military for 6 years.
Wow.
And then just before he was about to finish grad school, 6 years later, he called us one day and he says, "Hey, when are you going to come commission me?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I'm coming in the Air Force." I says, "What are you going to do that? You've got a good job at the North Jersey Medical Center as a hospital administrator. You're coming out of grad school with a degree in hospital administration, and that's going to pay you $70,000, and you're going to come in as a second lieutenant and make significantly less." He said, "That's what I want to do."
Oh my gosh.
So we went up, commissioned him. He came in the Air Force, and 22 years later, we pinned him to Brigadier General. But the greatest events I've ever had in that young man's career is we had the opportunity to participate in every one of his promotions except first lieutenant.
Oh,
every promotion, I had the opportunity, my wife and I, to go pin his rank for every promotion.
Oh my
and
gosh.
It's been a real joy. And now he's got two young men, and the oldest is a senior at the Air Force Academy. And we just learned from him last evening that he's got a UPT slot and he's coming to Del Rio, Texas, for pilot training.
Oh my gosh.
And the youngest one is a sophomore in the Corps at Texas A&M, and he wants to go to med school. So, we've just been tremendously blessed.
Oh, wow.
And, my wife is retired military. Our daughter-in-law, they met here at Wilford Hall. She's an Air Force nurse, and our son and now both grandchildren. So that's kind of the family business for us, and we couldn't be prouder or happier for a family of servants.
I will tell you, I'm going to tell you this pun is intended, but the flowers are just blossoming and blooming everywhere across the Air Force, and I think that's awesome.
Well, we're tremendously blessed, Shooter, and I thank God, for a family that's a family of servants that want to give back to the nation. I just shared this with you. I had an experience yesterday. I was out all day with a group in Master Leadership San Antonio, a group of 54 executives that we were showing around town the impact of the military here in San Antonio. And I had a 3:00 meeting at BAMC, Brooke Army Medical Center at Fort Sam. Mm-hmm. And there was a retired 3-star that was with me, and we pulled up at Brooke Army Medical Center. And, we kind of used to having a place to park when we show up at places.
Right.
But there was no parking place for either one of us. But there were 3 parking places that said Brigadier General Flowers. And I looked at the 3-star, and he looked at me. He says, we got a 3-star and a 2-star here, and there's 3 places that said Brigadier General Flowers. And I said, well, let's see where he is. And I called him on the phone. He said, "Hey, Dad, we just left." And I said, "Well, can I have 2 of your parking spaces?" He said, "Yeah, go ahead. That's fine. We're going."
I never would have thought, number one, that a father would be asking a son for a parking space, but I never would have thought that a 2 and a 3-star general would ask a 1-star for a parking space either.
I didn't either. We got inside, and I asked the commander. I said, "Hey, is it okay that I parked in Brigadier General Flowers' spot out there?" And she said, "Okay, sir, we missed that one, didn't we?" I said, "No, it's got the right name on it. I just asked him if it was okay."
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. That is awesome. Yeah. But you're keeping it in the family, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your book, sir.
Okay.
I want to know a couple of things about your book. Number one, why did you write it, and how long did it take you to put this book together?
I worked on that book for a long time, Shooter, as I was nearing the end of the military active duty and not knowing what I was going to do when I retired. And I had never had a full-time civilian job in my life. Coming into the military at 17 years old, I worked for like 3 months right out of high school before I came on active duty. And that was it. And I didn't know anything about the corporate world. I didn't know anything about working in a civilian job. So I started keeping notes early on. I kept all my briefings, and when I would do presentations and things, folks would say, "Hey, you need to do a book. You need to do a book." So I started collecting all this stuff and keeping copies of it. And I wanted to wait until I retired so that I could contrast civilian life and employment to the military. And the main purpose for writing that book is I had one thing in mind. I wanted to help people that came from a background like mine, underpoverished, out of hardcore poverty, out of Eastern North Carolina, in the country, who had little or nothing growing up. I want folks to understand that you don't have to live where you're born.
Oh, wow.
I was born in that situation. I knew that it was a bad situation. I understood coming out of high school that I wasn't well educated. And I learned it more and more every day in the military as I interacted with folks who had better educations. And I started looking back and said, hey, that's how I came up with the chapter, learning how to learn. Because I didn't know what I didn't know. And given the environment that I came out of, I didn't know the difference. I thought we were doing okay. I knew that I'd never seen a new textbook in my life. The first new textbook I saw was in the military because we got hand-me-downs in school. And when I started interacting with other folks, I realized, man, I am woefully behind here. And I've got to try to catch up or figure out what I'm going to do the rest of my life here to get myself up with my peers and folks that didn't come from communities like mine and didn't have experience like I'd had. So I just wanted to convey to young people, older people, anybody that read it, that, hey, sometimes you're born into a bad situation. You don't have a choice, but you've got a choice as to whether or not you live there. And it's kind of up to you if you want to stay there or if you want to stay someplace else. But the choice is yours.
Yes, sir.
So that was the basis for that book.
I'm glad you touched on the learning to learn chapter because, as you mentioned, growing up in North Carolina, you graduated high school, you couldn't afford college, so you decided to enlist in the United States military. And I believe you were so young, I believe the age of 17, that your grandmother had to sign for you, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
Wow. And so, sir, you joined, you enlisted, you found a way to make a way for yourself.
Yeah, I knew that there was something better. When you lie in the bed at night and you look through the ceiling at the stars, you realize that there are holes in the roof.
Oh wow!
We didn't have running water. I'd have to go out to a pump and pump water when we got water. We didn't have indoor plumbing. The bathroom was about, 100 yards or so from the house. But it was the best that we had at the time. And, being a young child, I was just trying to survive. When I was born, my mother was 18 years old and my dad was 16. I was born premature, less than 3 pounds, to children. They were children themselves with a child that was premature. So my grandmother took me to raise, and my grandfather, and they were sharecroppers in rural North Carolina. And for folks that don't know what sharecroppers are or were, sharecroppers, you were pretty much owned by a landlord. They let you live in a house. They had an old grocery store, a corner store, country store, and you go to their store and buy everything. And you work their fields, their crops. And at the harvest season, you sell everything that you've grown, and you pay them back everything that you owed them for what you borrowed and ate during the year, plus 50% of everything that would have been profit.
Wow!
So they got 75%. You got 25 if you were lucky.
Wow! Wow!
I remember years when my grandfather would come home after we had harvested all the tobacco and corn and everything else, and he would say, "Well, I still owe the landlord $300. And, I was a young kid, didn't understand that. And how you owed him $300? Well, he didn't know how he owed him $300. He knew it because that's what they told him.
Oh my gosh.
There were no records. He didn't have any records. He didn't know how much he owed. He may not have owed anything, but in his mind, that's what he was told, and that's what he understood, and that was the cost of having some place to stay, a roof
Oh
over your
my
head.
gosh. Wow.
So that's the environment that I came out of. And at age 15, I was almost 16, my grandfather died. He had massive heart attacks and died. It was just my grandmother and I. We couldn't continue to farm. And she had one rule for me in school, and that was you finish. You're going to finish.
Mm.
Not that you can stop school and work so we can survive. You're going to finish school. So we stopped the farming, moved in with my uncle, her son, and I continued and graduated from high school. And at graduation, the guidance counselor called me in and he says, "Hey, Al, you've got a $300 scholarship to A&T in agriculture." I wasn't too bright and I was a little bit underpoverished and not too smart, but I knew what $300 was, and it didn't buy much then and won't buy anything now.
Right.
So I knew there had to be a better way. And I had two cousins who, one was in the Army and one was in the Air Force. And I saw that they came out of the same environment, and they looked like they were doing pretty well and had money every time I saw them. So I said, "Hey, I got to try this military thing." The Army guy, he was always in the woods. Every time we saw him, he was coming out of the woods. So I said, "Man, I don't want to do that," because I spent a lot of time in the woods cutting wood to stay warm.
Right.
And I said, "Well, we'll try this Air Force thing." And they said, "Well, you're too young. Somebody's got to sign for you, a parent or a guardian." So my grandmother signed for me reluctantly. And I came into the Air Force at 17 years old. And the rest is history. And I can talk about any parts of that you like.
Well, I will tell you the rest is for sure history, but still ongoing as well. And that's a perfect transition point because you entered in the Air Force at the age of 17 and ultimately committed more than 46 years of service. So that brings me to my question, and for the audience, like, what does it take? I know the answer is dedication, but what does it take to be able to obligate yourself, commit yourself to serve your country for more than 46 years?
It takes a servant heart, humility, and a willingness to give all that you can and do the best that you can every day of your life. If you got a servant heart, servantship is what you're about. If you have humility, you realize that every day things aren't going to go your way, but because they don't, doesn't mean that you need to walk away.
That's right.
That you're going to stay with it because you feel like you've got something to give and that you're making a difference. And that's what motivated me every day of my life to stay on and just run on and see what the end was going to be and stay as long as I could. And I tell you, if I could still be there, I'd still be there.
Yes, sir. I will tell you, your name comes up in my household often because, again, I talk about you a lot. And here's why. As a prior enlisted member myself, prior enlisted Marine Corps, prior enlisted Air Force, and being fortunate and blessed enough to commission, when I changed branches of the service and I got out of the Marine Corps, and I started talking to my wife about rejoining the military as a whole. She said, "Okay, I support you, but if you go back in, you're going to stay in forever." And I didn't know what forever meant, right? And so she says, "You're going to beat General Flowers' record."
Yeah.
I don't know if I've got the skills and the talent that you exhibited over those years, sir, but it is a lofty goal to have.
Well, if you're enjoying it, you're having fun, you're making a difference, stay with it. That's kind of my message to everyone.
Yes,
if
sir.
you're not having fun and you don't think you're making a difference, then do something else.
Yes, sir.
Go someplace where you can make a difference. I'm often asked to talk about legacy. And I was over at the Bush Center a year ago, and somebody asked me about, what is your legacy? What do you want your legacy to be? And it's a very simple answer for me. They thought I was going to say, well, my son and my grandchildren will be behind. And to me, legacy is who attend the funeral.
Oh.
That's your legacy.
Mm.
Because that's who's left behind. What's put in the ground is not legacy. It's over. What went in the ground, you had your chance to make a difference. If you did it, who attended the funeral is your legacy, and they'll be behind, and it will continue on.
Oh my gosh.
People think about legacy as how much money I can leave behind, how many houses and all this wealth and stuff. That's not legacy.
Oh, wow.
Legacy is who you leave behind that will carry on and continue to make a difference for the good of humanity after you're gone.
Oh my gosh. When you made that transition, sir, what would you describe as the biggest difference between your time serving enlisted and your time serving as an officer?
The biggest difference was initially how you're treated. And some of that lasted until after I retired, because some of the younger officers that didn't have prior service didn't understand the enlisted side and what we go through, would make jokes and say, hey, this lifer here wants to be an officer. And, he's an NCO at heart and wearing officer rank. And I even had a fella tell me one time that in addition to being a prior enlisted person, that I was going to retire captain because I had a black accent. And as fate would have it, I had the opportunity to go to his retirement as a colonel, and he was a lieutenant colonel. And then fate went on a little further, and a few years later, he showed up to work for me when I was a 2-star.
Oh, my.
So, you never know where you're going to go, but you need to treat people with respect, regardless of how many years of service they have, because you don't know. I did a presentation this morning, and there was a civilian in the room, a retired chief master sergeant, who was my boss when I was a staff sergeant. He was a tech sergeant.
Wow.
He's a retired chief. And he was in the room, and we've worked together since I've been a general. So you just don't know.
That's right.
You make up your mind if you want to make the transition, and you do the best you can. One of the things I used to get asked all the time in shooting when I commanded the home center in the commissioning program, I'd have prior enlisted folks that would challenge me because they had to do the same amount of time at officer training school that non-priors had to do. And they always ask me, well, why do I have to be here for 3 months like everybody else? And I'd ask them one simple question. That question was, how many days in your career have you spent as an officer? And they would look at me like, what you mean, how many? The answer is none, but that's why you're here. We're here to teach you how to become an officer. You already know how to be an enlisted person. If you put the two of those together and work smartly, you can have a very dynamic career.
Absolutely.
And make an amazing difference because of what you know and your experience. So don't question why you're here. You know why you're here. Make the best of it. Take what we're trying to give you and go use it to make the Air Force better.
Oh my gosh, sir! You're dropping knowledge bombs. It's too much shrapnel flying in everywhere. This is good. This is good. This is amazing. Those questions still come up today, and I think some changes have been made to offer shorter training school for prior enlisted and things like that. But wow, that just blew my mind. I want to ask you now though. Since you took off the uniform, or when you initially took off the uniform, what was your life like, and who is Alfred K. Flowers now?
Yeah, the day that I retired, I was sitting in my office right in front of this plaque that you mentioned earlier, and my wife came in. She says, "Well, I guess it's just you and me. You don't have any execs. You don't have an aide. You don't have all those admin folks. It's just you and me." And I thought about that after all those years. I said, you know what? She's right. It is just us. So where do you go from here? Well, where I went from there is I knew that I wanted to continue giving back and making a difference in the lives of veterans and families and cadets.
Hmm.
So today, I initially I became the COO of an IT and engineering company here in San Antonio and did that for about 4.5 years. And then I gave that up in 2017 and got into the nonprofit world. And today I serve on 7 nonprofit boards
Oh, wow.
that are giving back to veterans, families, cadets, and supporting homelessness, mental health issue, PTSD, traumatic brain injury
Hmm.
uh, in Texas and all over the country. For instance, I'm the vice chair of one board that's focused on veteran mental illness, PTSD, traumatic brain injury, veteran homelessness, and disaster case management from disasters. I'm also the chairman of their foundation that's focused on giving back in underprivileged communities.
Hmm.
I do a lot of work with Arnold Air Society. Easter weekend, we're going to have 1,000 cadets in Las Vegas with the
Oh, wow.
leadership and mentoring for ROTC cadets. I serve on the board at Blue Skies of Texas, which used to be Air Force Village. I serve on 2 boards with the Ecumenical Center that's focused on family issues and veterans with mental health issues. I just do a lot of giving
Hmm.
back now because to whom much is given, much is received and much is expected.
Absolutely.
So I have been given a lot. I've had a lot of help. I did a presentation this morning and I referred to myself as the turtle on the fence post. I didn't get there by myself. I didn't stay there by myself, and a lot of people hadn't stayed around me. I would have fallen off. And
Oh.
I still feel that way.
Oh my gosh, sir. Wow. I tell you what, you're not only continuing to set a path for the folks that are coming up, but you're teaching other people how to set a path for folks that are coming up. You know, folks like
That's
myself. I'm watching, I'm listening, I'm learning. I hope that everyone else that is watching, listening, and learning does the same thing. Because as you mentioned, you know, like yourself, you've been a recipient of lots of great mentorship and leadership.
yeah,
And I think that watching you dedicate your life to giving back is going to come back 20 times fold. It's just going to be amazing.
yeah. I have a presentation that I do. A group invited me up to Bozeman, Montana last year to talk about legacy, and they had 2 speakers. I had a professor from Syracuse to talk about how to successfully run for public office and win. And they wanted me to talk about legacy. And these were a group of about 50 young executives, very wealthy, academy graduates, West Point, Annapolis, Yale, Princeton, Duke, Harvard. Uh, and they all in business. All of them had been in the military, all business people, a lot of Silicon Valley folks with a lot of money. And they just wanted to talk about legacy. And I
Mm,
talked about the legacy you receive when you're born, the legacy you live while you're here, and the legacy you leave after you're deceased.
mm,
And I talk about that a lot. You know,
mm.
the things that you just mentioned of what I'm talking about, and you're listening and folks are learning that's legacy. That's what you leave behind.
Because you're such a smart man, sir, you actually were able to tap into one of my wrap up questions, which would have been, you know, what information would you leave behind to your audience or anything else that you wanted to kind of leave behind from your book. But I do want to actually kind of lead you in the direction of a favorite quote of mine that I pulled from your book. And the quote goes something like, "The first thing you should do when you realize you are on a dead horse is get off."
Just get off. That's right. You
Can
know,
you tell me what that means to you, sir?
I mean, the dead horse isn't going into place. And if you realize you're walking down a dark alley, turn the light on and turn around and walk the other way. Stop. Don't waste your time being unproductive. Life
Mm,
is too short. And being productive doesn't just mean it's about you. It's not about us. Being productive means helping others to reach their greatest, fullest capability. Because that's what life is about. We leave here And all we've thought about is ourselves. What did we leave? What have we contributed to humanity?
Right. That's
Not
right.
much.
That's right.
So don't waste your time being unproductive. You know when you're non-productive, and do productive things. Help others. Respect everyone, and lead with heart, humility, excellence. Maintain a great positive attitude. Respect everybody. There's no one that's so low that they don't reserve respect as a human being. And trust. Trust your fellow man. Trust yourself. And if you can't trust those around you, you're hanging out with the wrong group.
Oh, wow. I love it. I love it. I don't want to make your life any harder, sir, and I don't want to open up the floodgates. But with this wealth of knowledge here, is there any way, any platforms, any way people could reach out to you or maybe go find information just about your infinite wisdom? In any way people can reach out to you or maybe contact you at all?
Yeah, on Google, if you just Google Alfred K. Flowers, and you'll get three of them that'll come up. Me, my son, and the third, which is the son at the academy. But the senior, I'm on Google. There's a lot of stuff there. I'm on email at akendall, akendell78 @gmail.com. And you can email me. I'd be glad to interact with you. And the book is always out there on Amazon. If you just Google my name on Amazon, it'll come up, and it's available. I get them all the time in the mail. Folks want me to sign them and send them back. I do that as well. If you mail me one and send me a prepaid envelope, I'll mail it back to you. Or if you want me to send it to you and you reimburse me, I'll do that as well. But I need to send you one endorsed, Shooter, and I will. Don't worry about it.
Oh, sir, thank you.
Give me an address and I'll send you one. But that's how you can contact me. And I'm speaking all over the place most of the time. Next week, I'm at Patrick Air Force Base doing 2 Black History Month speeches at Patrick. Today, I was in San Antonio, yesterday in San Antonio. So I'm doing a lot of things in a lot of places. I'm just trying to do the best that I can for humanity and give back where I can and help people understand that you can be born in some bad places, but you don't have to live there. There's a way out.
I absolutely love it, sir. I'm speechless. I'm speechless, sir. But I want to wrap up in a fun way, something new that I am experimenting with, to just kind of give people a little bit more of that human side, because I'm going to be honest with you. A lot of people see you and they read about you and they go, "Oh, he's untouchable," that kind of thing. But we're all humans, and so asking just general questions helps you really understand the man or the woman behind, all of the things that they've been able to do. So I've got 10 questions here for you, sir. It's kind of a little bit of a speed round just to have the audience connect with you just a little bit more. So I'm going to start with question number 1. When it comes to grits, do you prefer sugar or salt?
Sugar.
Disappointed, sir. Football or basketball?
Basketball.
Would you rather read a book or watch a movie?
Read a book.
When it comes to working out, would you rather lift weights or take a run or take a walk?
Take a walk.
Whiskey or beer?
If I did used one, it would be beer. I don't do either one, but beer would be my choice if I did.
Gotcha, sir. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Jeans or slacks?
Slacks.
Batman or Spider-Man?
Batman.
And last but not least, jazz or blues?
Blues.
Blues.
I'm a gusher boy. Gusher boy like blues. BB.
That's absolutely awesome, sir. I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you could have been anywhere and you're high demand and your time is valuable. I just want to say thank you for spending time with SimStation Nation, sir. We really appreciate it. And again, this has been an absolute honor for me.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you're doing with Sim Nation. God bless your family. All the best for you.
Thank you, sir. All right. Thanks, everybody, for dialing in. Until next time, I'm out.
Out here. Bye-bye.